And we play all the way for Leeds United. Ellen Road is the only place for us. With heart and soul for the goal that's clearly sighted. We're out to toast each other from that silver cup.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Leeds United News and Views podcast. And this is a side episode because we've got nothing to talk about regarding games because the Liverpool game isn't for another 8 days in Australia. So we're going to talk transfers now that the transfer window has closed. As always, joined by the regular uglies, we got Chris and Jason. Thank you very much, guys. And let's start, obviously, the big talks of the last week. Dan James signing from Man United. We finally got him. And if anyone knows anything about Leeds United, it was all but a done deal 2 years ago. And then Swansea pulled the fucking plug. I'll start with Jason, mate. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, Bielsa finally got his boy. Really happy with the signing. Obviously, we splashed a bit of cash on him, but great signing. And as we've had a couple of conversations earlier, it could even potentially be a double signing as Dan James hopefully will sit out on that wing, and it can hopefully free Rafinha up to play across that middle area as a number 10. And hopefully that's what happens, and we see a bit more creativity through the middle. Glad we got him.
Yeah, wicked. And Chris, mate, do you believe he was worth what we paid?
I mean, we're currently living in strange times where football valuations and whatnot have kind of gone all haywire. £25 million was obviously a lot of money. It was just slightly more than what Manchester United paid Swansea for him. They actually haven't really made all that much money in this deal. I think it's somewhat justifiable in that we probably needed extra cover out wide, and obviously Dan James definitely adds that. I guess time will tell whether that price tag's justifiable. We've spoken a lot on the show lately about players coming to Leeds for big prices and not really getting the instant
money's worth sort of thing.
So Rodrigo and players like that. My personal opinions, I think that it's probably on the high end of what we should have probably paid. But obviously, I'm not the man on the blue bucket, so that decision was ultimately up to the club. I think it's a great bit of business nonetheless, but I think it's probably on the high end of what we should have paid.
That's fair enough, and honestly, an understandable assumption. Hjelde has been not Helder. Hjelde, to anyone who's listening, has been bought from Celtic on a 4-year, you could say, under 23s, because he's still quite a youngster, contract for Leeds. What are your thoughts on that? We'll start with Chris for that one.
Yeah, I full discretion, I actually don't know much about this bloke. He's very much one of those signings, and we'll get into it on another podcast, I'm sure, one of those signings that you kind of wonder who they are, and then you do a bit of research about them, and you say, yeah, I can see why we're interested in him. But yeah, I had never heard of the bloke until we were linked with him. Apparently, quite coveted at the Celtic Academy, but one of those players where question marks were asked whether or not he could make it to the first team, and ultimately he's decided to bring his talents to Leeds. The deal allegedly wasn't worth that much money. I've heard in the vicinity of about £1 million. And yeah, in Premier League terms, that's kind of just a splash in the bucket. So be interesting to see how he develops.
Oh, absolutely. Do you have anything to add to that, Jason?
Probably similar to Chris. I mean, prior to, of course, hearing us being linked with him and in turn signing him, I had never heard of him before, to be honest with you. But that's in the last couple of weeks. That's Hyja, how you pronounce his name. And
Hyja. I thought it was Hjelde. Sorry.
Hjelde. I don't know which
one of those two. Something like that.
Yeah, a little bit of a guessing game. But I mean, that's obviously we've signed him as a centre back and then Creswell as well. Creswell. Yep. Yeah. So that's obviously two young big ball playing centre backs. So that might be a bit of an eye into the window of the future of what our defence looks like in the next, 5+ years. Then that's as much. I guess he'll get time in the 23s for a bit, as Bielsa likes to do.
Yep.
It's nice to have some, I guess, big centre back stocks in
Yes.
waiting.
And just following on that from Jason, Charlie Creswell is a very exciting young talent, capped at English under 21s level.
He's
very
a big boy.
he's 6'1", and from all accounts, he's built like a brick outhouse.
Yes.
Not the kind of bloke you'd want to run into in a dark alley late at night. I can assure you.
Nah, for sure.
But yeah, he's very much seen as the next generation of Leeds defenders. He's in the conversation with Sam Greenwood and whatnot to possibly be in line for a call up to the first team. So in terms of future probabilities, I would probably say keep your eye on Creswell for the near future, and that bloke we were just previously talking about. I'm not going to offend him by butchering his name.
Yep.
He is probably more for an eye to the further future, so to speak.
Yeah, fair enough. And speaking, going from one Helder to another Helder, Helder Costa has been loaned to Valencia for a season-long loan, or for remainder of the season. We'll start off with Jason on that one. What are your thoughts on that? And obviously, with Daniel James being signed, obviously someone had to go. Do you think Helder should have gone, or do you think maybe, what's his name? Brain fighting hard right now. Fuck. Forshaw could have gone.
Well, I mean, it's in terms of, it's a good move for Helder. Of course, we've got Dan James that's come in, and that sort of puts him a little bit further down the pecking order. If you're in the prime of your career and you're not gonna get consistent minutes where you are, then go out on loan.
Absolutely.
There is an option to buy at the end of that 12 months, so it's a try before you buy sort of deal, which could be good for Leeds. They could either get a player back at the end of it that's had a year consistently playing. Yeah, I think.
But if we know the Bielsa way, it's you go out for loan, you don't return.
Yeah. Well, that's I know what you mean. But I think there was a few clubs apparently came in for that Somerville as well. Somerville's obviously gone up the pecking order pretty quickly in the last 6 months as well. So, but a few teams apparently came in for Somerville, but Bielsa had put a hard line stamp no on that, saying he needs him part of the squad. So if that Somerville's in the plans to get a few minutes, then it's a great move for Costa, regardless of my opinion on him as a player.
Yeah. Do you have anything to build onto that, Chris?
Yeah, I think the writing's been on the wall for Costa for a while. At championship level, he was obviously quite a sizable moving cog in the overall cogs that moved us to promotion.
Yep.
At Premier League level, questions obviously were asked about his consistency and his ability going forward. I think the writing's been on the wall in a while, in the sense that the club has always maintained that we were looking for more depth out wide. This is despite the fact that we've already got players like Rafinha, etc. And it was really down to whether it was going to be given that Somerville was going to be given a chance, or whether we were going to go forward with Costa. And I think, ultimately with Daniel James coming in, it kind of puts an end to that discussion. Somerville appeared on the bench the other week for our cup games, for our cup game, and he's making sporadic appearances on the Premier League bench. So it
won't be long before we see him playing.
I tell you what, just talking about that, when Somerville gets a run, both him and Dan James are just genuine pace and explosive running. Like it's going to be when we sort of sit defending corners, it'll be exciting to see us on the counter attack with those two up,
running up the middle.
Yeah.
And building on from that, exactly. I think that the way we're trying to play, the way we played last year, and the way we're trying to play this year, I think it just suits a more pacey type of player. And for all of Helder's abilities, and let's first of all make no bones about this, Helder is a talented player.
Absolutely.
He definitely has something about him. What I am disputing is his ability at Premier League level. So I think it's a good move for Helder to go and test his limits in La Liga for Valencia, and I think it's a good move for us to get some of that that payroll off to get some of that money off our payroll, so to speak. And obviously, there's the tasty incentive of the end of loan option for Valencia, which I believe is in the vicinity of about 10 million. Obviously, still substantially less than we paid Wolves for him. But I guess that's the current market, and I guess that's the development of the player. Unfortunately, the development of the player he's become.
Yeah, fair, and I'll absolutely agree with that. And we re-signed Bamford a few weeks ago, as we know, just before the Everton game. Obviously, that's old news, but it's to do with the transfer window technically. So we've already, Chris and I have covered that. So a few episodes ago before Jason joined in. So we'll get Jason's opinions and thoughts on the re-signing of Bamford for 5 more years.
Yeah, look, I'm glad to. Yeah, it's a big deal. I'm glad that we've got it over the line. I'm in the Bamford camp as far as Leeds supporters go. So
you could say you're in the Campford.
Yeah, I'm in the Campford with him. In the trenches with him. I'm really happy that we got that deal across the line. I think he's a really important part of our team in more ways than just his goals and assists. I think now we've got him. I think next key signing should be Rafinha. He's only got a couple of years left on his deal, so it will be really nice to lock him into a longer term contract just to keep us all at ease. And that's really all. That's all I can really say about that.
Now, before we go into our speculation, what were you going to say, Chris?
I just wanted to elaborate on that. We've also, with the Bamford deal, we've also got to keep in mind that deal was signed before we knew that, a few days or a few weeks later, he would be called up to the England squad. So we've also got to now keep in mind that Bamford is technically now an English international.
But he had...
so that adds a few more pounds onto his valuation, which is only good for us.
Okay. Quick question, because I don't know this in particular, and I'm going to out myself by not knowing this. If you don't play a single game for that nation, does that make you an English international?
No.
So therefore, he's not an English international yet.
As it sits right now, however, England's next qualifier is essentially, without being disrespectful to who they're playing, it's essentially a squash game. It is highly tipped that Southgate will field a rotated side. And it is extremely likely, in fact, I would put very good money on it, that we will see some form of minutes from Bamford from that game. I don't think he'll start. I think it'll very much be a case of Southgate getting the result in the bag first, so to speak. But I would put very good money on, by the end of that 90 minutes, Bamford will be a fully capped international for England.
Too easy. So at point of recording, just so for anyone who's listening, Bamford is technically not an international yet, because this will by point when at time of recording and at time of upload, keep an eye on Patrick Bamford, everyone, because he is definitely marked for making his international cap debut within the next day or two. Would you agree to that, Chris?
Yeah, no, absolutely. At the point of recording, he's not an international, but I mean,
but he will be.
He will be. He will be.
he will be. It's as good as done.
Yeah, sweet as. Now, before we get into our fun sort of questions, have we spent well in this transfer market? I'll take that over to Chris first, because he's Mr. Stats and Knowledge.
Yeah, listen, with the market the way it is today, obviously, there was a lot of big spending from other clubs. We saw probably the most profitable transfer market in the history of football, in where no one actually spent.
Yeah.
You've got to remember that players like Messi and Sergio Ramos and Donnarumma, they all went to PSG for
Mhm.
absolutely nothing.
For
For,
peanuts.
for £0. So it's been a weird transfer window in where big money has been shifted from club to club, but nothing's actually been spent.
Yeah.
In a more localized Leeds term, I would say we probably have done as good as we probably could have done with the tools available to us.
Yes.
We probably didn't cover as many positions as we would have liked. You know, there was talk. Sorry, there was talk of us needing a bit more cover in the central midfield. There was talk of needing another defender. And obviously our business in the window looked as good as done when that Celtic boy came through the door. Obviously, no one could predict that a few days later Ronaldo would move from Juventus to Manchester United, and that would essentially make Daniel James surplus to requirements. But yeah, I think we've done as good as we could have done. Without Daniel James, our biggest bit of business was Junior Firpo as a defensive player. So yeah, I think we've done as good as we could have done.
Yeah, fair. Do you have anything to add to that, Jason?
I'm really happy with our transfer window, to be honest with you. I really like our strategy. That regardless of what league we're in, we stick to developing and maintaining our youth. Lots of players signed at academy level. That Lewis Bate as well, that's come through from Chelsea. Some player, if you boys have managed to watch any of the under 23s minutes, got a big signing in Dan James. Kept the big man Patrick Bamford. So happy with that. And when he scores on his debut, that allowed another 0 to his contract. So if anyone wants him, they're going to have to pay big dollars.
Absolutely. Pay big dollars, or at least pay his bloody release clause, because there's definitely going to be one in his contract.
A question without notice to you boys, and I'm going to take over the CJ role for a moment and let you
go for it.
You two boys speculate. The other night, on Instagram, I saw a very interesting caption in where Angus Kinnear has apparently revealed that throughout the previous transfer window, Leeds resisted over £100 million worth of offers for a variety of players. He didn't speculate who those players were or what the individual offers for those players were. I'm interested to know from you boys, what do you think of that? Who do you think they were, and who do you think the clubs in offer were buying?
Well, I think at the time you've got to look at back then. I think it was definitely 3 players for sure: Calvin Phillips, Bamford, and Ayling. I reckon would have been 3 of them. What do you reckon, Jason?
See, I Calvin, Rafinha,
without a doubt, Calvin. Okay, Rafinha, okay.
And end of list, I reckon. Personally.
There were those rumours very early on from Liverpool. Those rumours early on from Liverpool that they were interested in Rafinha. The valuation that they were apparently offering was upwards of about £50 million. Now, this was nothing but speculation, but this is what the word from a number of fairly reliable,
credible sources
were. So I personally, I'd have Rafinha in there somewhere. I would probably have Bamford in there somewhere. Calvin Phillips is a bit of a hard one. Calvin's valuation was always going to be high, especially with all the talk of with all the comparisons of him and Jack Grealish. I don't think there were probably any serious bids for Calvin Phillips. Obviously because of that valuation. But I think that if there were 3 players that were leaving and that was going to be the figure, I think it would have been Rafinha, Bamford, and Phillips.
Yeah, fair. That's fair enough. And honestly, that was a great question and topic, Chris. Thank you very much. Now, speculation and hindsight is a great thing, guys. So we're going to go into a bit of that. Who would you have bought in our transfer window and why, if we had 100 million, like maximum free? I'll start with Chris.
One player that I'm trying to take my Australian hat off here, but it's bloody hard to. One player that I have touted for quite some time, and I can't believe that no one's gone in for him, or maybe they haven't, we just haven't heard. Harry Saltchar, Harry Saltchar from English Football League club Stoke City. He's a very tall bloke. He's 6'6". In fact, he's the second tallest Australian player to ever represent the national team. He's played 6 games for Australia, and he's scored 6 goals for Australia. So that tells you what kind of return he's having. And he's quite young. He's only 22 years old. He's very much seen as one for the future for Stoke. His valuation on transfer market is about £4 million. I would have given him a shot. He ticks all the boxes in terms of a good cover at centre back. But yeah, just from a personal note, I'm genuinely surprised that no one's looked at a move for him.
Yeah, fair. Mine would have been would have brought him home. Born in Leeds, not necessarily raised in Leeds, but Erling Haaland. His dad played for him, Alf Ingo, as we know. And I think we could have got him for under 100 mil. His price tag right now would be a bit more now that he's played for Norway again. However, last year when he was playing for Dortmund, which is my Bundesliga team, for anyone who was wondering, he was good, but he wasn't as good as the season before. He lacked a little bit of form. Still scored goals, don't get me wrong, but he definitely lacked a bit of form. I think we could have got him for maybe 70, 75, maybe stretched it to 80 mil. That's who I would have bought. Crossing over to Jason, who would you have bought and why?
I think having a think about it, and from watching England games, and the little bromance that's going on, Declan Rice.
Yes.
Declan Rice and Calvin, we'd almost never concede a goal. Them two sitting across the back there, just looking out, and yeah, we'd never concede a goal. So someone like Declan Rice.
And how much would you be willing to pay for him, as if you were Bielsa / Andrea?
Probably don't want to. You don't want to spend silly money, because we've been there before where we've been in a position and spent silly, and obviously look where it got us. But at the same time, buying a Premier League player does come with some element of a price tag. If we'd have paid maybe between 30 and 50 million for him,
I was going to say maybe 45, I think is a reasonable offer. Yeah.
He's obviously we've already got a Declan Rice in the form of Calvin Phillips, but those two, just seeing how their pairs work together for England recently, it looks really strong. So if we had those two at Leeds, would be the goals would definitely dry up that we conceded.
Absolutely. And do you have anything to build onto that, Chris?
I think Declan Rice would have probably been a good shout for us. Whether or not him and Haaland are at all realistic options to come to
That's true.
Probably,
you can dream.
That's probably debatable. But in a fair and just world where they were interested in it, I think they would be good shouts.
Absolutely. And last topic of the episode is, how do you guys think Hjelde and James, or Daniel James, Hjelde's a bit further away from his first match debut, first team debut. So we'll go with Daniel James in particular more so. So how do you guys think Daniel James will go when he gets his, first string game for Leeds? It may be against Liverpool. It probably will be, but it may not be. Just in general, how do you think he's going to fare amongst the team, and how do you think he may be settling in at the moment? We'll cross over to Chris to start with that one.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Leeds is a much happier place than Manchester. So,
yes.
So hopefully he can take the next week and a half or so to start getting himself into his new way of life. I think he'll do well. I think we will see him in the Liverpool game. Whether or not he's in the starting lineup is probably yet to be decided. I think a lot of that is going to have to do with this so-called Brazil ban, so to speak. It's going to be determined on how long we've lost Rafinha for. But I think we will see him against Liverpool. I think he'll have a good game. I think he'll want to come on and make an immediate impact. But yeah, I think long term he'll only be good for us.
Absolutely. And crossing over to Jason, mate, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, hopefully impact. I mean, we all know what he brings. He brings bags of pace and just a nuisance. He runs both ways, both defensively and when we're attacking as well. So it'd be really nice to see him get a start. But I mean, it just depends, I guess, how well he fits into obviously Bielsa's system in this next 2 weeks. Be nice to see him at some stage. And I'm hoping he has an instant impact. He's a good player, brings a lot of pace, like I said. And I'm excited to see when we're defending corners what it's going to be like with him just being an absolute speed demon and moving us up the field. So yeah, excited about him.
Yeah, wicked. So closing out this episode, guys, just want to thank you guys for, as always, joining me for a chinmag about the mighty United. And in my opinion, the only United to follow. Now, anyone who's listening, catch us probably in the next 2 or 3 days, maybe 4 days, because we'll be doing our Liverpool match preview because we've still got bloody 8 days. It's been such a fucking long time between games and it's doing my head in. Honestly, just I want these 8 days to go so bloody quick. But hey, it helps with buying things online and having them arrive. So yeah, so that always helps kill some time for like a minute. But yeah, anyway, guys, I'm going to end it there. Thank you, everyone who's listened so far and listened to us nuffies talk nothing but utter shit. Until next time, guys, to the listeners, stay tuned for our Liverpool preview coming up probably within the week.
We are